Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Today, we will be continuing our reading of, um, well, we kind of came from Madhya Lila, chapter 6, text 131, where in the purport, because this is that whole section in the Madhya Lila was about the discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And they had a back and forth Vedānta discussion. And in the purport, Prabhupada refers to Ādi Lila, chapter 7, texts 106 through 146. So it's like 41 verses which go deep into Vedanta philosophy and with long purports as well. So we are doing that deep dive, taking that call from Madhya 6.131 purport. The last week we did 106th and 107th verse. Now today we will be going from 108th verse onwards until we reach 146. We will be doing this section. So we'll be revisiting this section, which we did many years ago, I think. Ādi Lila chapter 7. So we're going to kind of recap because I don't think I remembered anything. And I want to remember something at least. Of course, to take down notes is useful, but I'm not doing that. It's just a live lecture, and I'm kind of extemporaneously reading and explaining what I understand, just to refresh my memory and of everybody else. All right, we'll say our Mangalacharan prayers and quickly dive into this. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Thapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Alright, so we will be beginning from this chapter 7, text 108 onwards in our study of Vedanta philosophy. So we have done the 106 and 107 in our previous session, and we'll be starting from 108 and see how far we will go. Upanishads Sahita Sutra Kahe Jai Tattva Mukhya Vritye Shai Artha Parama Mahatva. Mukhya Vritya Shai Artha Parama Mahatva. The absolute truth is described in the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutra, but one must understand the verses as they are, that is the supreme glory in understanding. Mukhya vritti. So this is a very important topic. Mukhya vritti, lakshana vritti, mukhya vritti or abhidha vritti, and then as opposed to lakshana vritti, it's not exactly opposed to it. Both of them can complement each other, or rather, the lakshana or guna vritti can complement the mukhya vritti when used properly, and Vaishnavacharyas have used that properly. But especially with Shankaracharya, he highlighted the lakshana vritti and suppressed the mukhya vritti and thus distorted the meaning. And we will learn all of this: what is mukhya vritti, what is abhidha vritti, and what is lakshana vritti or guna vritti. All of that. So let's go to the purport first, and we will expand upon that. So, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I think I should say translations and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, because I think we'll be going over many of these verses. So, purport. It has become fashionable since the time of Shankaracharya to explain everything regarding the Shastras in an indirect way. Scholars take pride in explaining everything in their own way. Now, just before we go there, you see the translation, but one must understand the verses as they are. That is the supreme glory in understanding. Now, this is the meaning, definitely, but this word is also important. This is a technical word, so therefore we need to register this. This is something we need to register. It's an important word. Mukhya vritti. Of course, here mukhya vrittiye shayartha. So it's by direct understanding. Vrittiye means vritti in Bengali. It's vrittiye, by direct understanding. Vritti means mukhya vritti means direct understanding. The dictionary definition of the word is the direct understanding of that word. Now, it may sometimes imply something else. So that's lakshana vritti, or a special case is guna vritti. So like that it may go, but mukhya vritti is the main understanding. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is proffering the, in fact, he is not just proffering, he's just concluding, he's declaring that taking the dictionary meaning of the word and explaining the Upanishads, it will become very easier instead of imposing meanings by indirect association. So we will read all of that. But remember the word mukhya vritti. Okay? So it is. So mukhya vritti is direct meaning. Okay. So it has become fashionable since the time of Shankaracharya to explain everything regarding the Shastras in an indirect way. Scholars take pride in explaining everything in their own way, and they declare that one can understand the Vedic scriptures in any way he likes. So you see, this is actually very prominent, especially nowadays in India and also all over the world, but especially we can see this in India. Everybody is interpreting the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic scriptures in their own way. In fact, there have been podcast episodes where an astrologer tries to explain the time of Bhagavan Ramachandra's existence or avatar, and he dates it back to around 12,000 years, around 9,000 years or 10,000, around that. And he has his own way of explaining. And also when he tries to explain different astrological phenomena and tries to tie it with modern scientific understanding, they come up with this very awkward explanation that the Vedic understanding, like the moon, he has 27 wives, the stars, and in their way of in their way of explanation, they explain some astronomical phenomena that happens, or they crossed path, or came in the same zodiac, or astronomers have recorded this particular event in astronomical history, and then it ties with this astrological explanation as somebody marrying somebody. Actually, it's only a moon and a star, but they try to say that Vedic science about astronomy is explained in a fairy tale way for people to understand. That's a very unscientific way of explaining anything, and they make some really far outlandish claims. So, which makes it look that our Vedic scriptures are a joke. Everything that is scientific has to have a story behind it, just like every Indian movie will have a song for everything. So, some astronomical phenomena, some moving of stars has to be some marriage, some drama, some emotional uh, something. So, I mean, you think the sages like Vyasadeva and Bharadwaj Rishi, or Vashishta, Vishwamitra, they all are like so childish that unless when explain it in absolute children's story fashion, you cannot understand big astronomical phenomena. It's not correct. So this is one example of explaining in their own way what it means and diluting the entire veracity of the text, and making it look like a joke. That's just astronomy. I mean, I just gave an example of one kind, but this happens all across the interpretation of our scriptures. So, and they take pride. That's the problem. Scholars take pride in explaining everything in their own way, and they declare that one can understand the Vedic scriptures in any way he likes. This any way you like method is foolishness, and it has created havoc in the Vedic culture. One cannot accept scientific knowledge in his own whimsical way. In the science of mathematics, for example, 2 plus 2 equals 4, and one cannot make it equal 3 or 5. Yet, although it is not possible to alter real knowledge, people have taken to the fashion of understanding Vedic knowledge in any way they like. It is for this reason that we have presented Bhagavad Gita as it is. We do not create meanings by concoction. Sometimes commentators say that the word Kurukshetra in the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita refers to one's body, but we do not accept this. We understand that Kurukshetra is a place that still exists, and according to the Vedic version, it is a Dharma Kshetra, or a place of pilgrimage. People still go there to perform Vedic sacrifices. Foolish commentators, however, say that Kurukshetra means the body, and that Panchapandava, that means the 5 Pandavas, refers to the 5 senses. Who is this foolish commentator? Gandhi. He is actually referring to Gandhi. In this way, they distort the meaning. And mind you, when Narendra Modi became Prime Minister of India, in the beginning, he was gifting Bhagavad Gitas to world leaders. And the Bhagavad Gita that he was distributing was Gita according to Gandhi. That was the version he was distributing to them. What is the use of that book? So, Bhagavad Gita as it is, that should be distributed. Okay, so going forward, in this way they distort the meaning and people are misled. Here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms that all Vedic literatures, including the Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and others, whether Shruti, Smriti, or Nyaya, must be understood according to their original statements. To describe the direct meaning of the Vedic literatures is glorious, Param Mahatva. But to describe them in one's own way using imperfect senses and imperfect knowledge is a disastrous blunder. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fully deprecated the attempt to describe the Vedas in this way. Regarding the Upanishads, the following 11 Upanishads are considered to be the topmost. Isha Upanishad, Isha Upanishad. So it's the foremost of all Upanishads. Then Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Mundakopanishad, Mandukyopanishad, Taittiriyopanishad, Aitareyopanishad, Chandogyopanishad, Brihadaranyaka and Shvetashvatara. However, in the Muktikopanishad, verses 30 through 39, there is a description of 108 Upanishads. Now, there is no particular reason or logical reason why the list of Upanishads need to be mentioned in this verse, according to this verse. But Srila Prabhupada wants us to know. Now, even if we don't delve into the Upanishads or the Vedas or the Vedanta Sutra in depth, but he wanted us to know the conclusions and the main arguments of Vedanta Sutra according to our Sampradaya, according to Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And if we are engaging with such people, we need to know, we need to be robust in our understanding of Vedanta philosophy according to Mayavada and the defects as well. So anyway, here is a list of 108 Upanishads. They are as follows: Ishopanishad, Kenopanishad, Kathopanishad, Prashnopanishad, Mundakopanishad, Mandukyopanishad, Taittiriyopanishad, Aitareyopanishad, Chandogyopanishad, Brihadaranyaka, Brahmopanishad, Kaivalyopanishad, Jabalopanishad, Shvetashvataropanishad, Hamsopanishad, Aruneyopanishad, Garbhopanishad, which I used in the my video on my channel talking about abortion. I refer to Garbhopanishad, some of the texts from the Garbhopanishad. Very interesting because it complements what we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam and also some details which are not exactly there. And I got here to Garbhopanishad because in 331.5, 331.5, there is a mention of Apyayani, the umbilical cord, the placenta is mentioned, and it is mentioned there that it is from Garbhopanishad. No, I think it's from Markandeya Upanishad, sorry. Markandeya Upanishad. So I searched for Markandeya Upanishad and I got those texts describing Apyayani, the placenta and the umbilical cord, how the mother feeds the child within the womb, because without surgery, without how to explain these things. Of course, when the child is born, the placenta comes out as well. But the thing is, this is very nicely explained in our Vedic scriptures. So I took out that. But when I searched Markandeya Upanishad, then this verse came, and in this, I was just looking at all the names. Then I found Garbhopanishad. Garbhopanishad? I was curious. Garbha is womb, so maybe there is some information. So I searched for Garbhopanishad text, and I found it online. Thanks to whoever digitized all the scriptures. I think it's a collective work of many people over many years. But yes, Garbhopanishad was found, and there I found some relevant passages which I quoted in that video. So anyway, moving on. Garbhopanishad, Narayanopanishad, Paramahamsopanishad, Amrita Bindupanishad, Amrita Bindupanishad, Amrita Nadopanishad, Shiropanishad, Atharva Shikhopanishad, Maitrayanyopanishad, Kaushitakyupanishad, Brihad Jabalopanishad. This Jabalopanishad is coming very much. Satyakama Jabala. Nrisimhadeva Kalagni Rudropanishad, Maitreyopanishad, Subalopanishad, Kshurikopanishad, Mantrikopanishad, Sarvasaropanishad, Niralambopanishad, Shukarahasyopanishad, Vajra Suchikopanishad, Tejo Bindu Upanishad, Nada Bindu Upanishad, Dhyana Bindu Upanishad, Brahma Vidyopanishad, Yoga Tattvopanishad, Atma Bodhopanishad, Narada Parivrajakopanishad, Trishikyupanishad, Sitopanishad, Yoga Chudamanyopanishad, Nirvanopanishad, Mandala Brahmopanishad, Dakshina Dakshinamurti Upanishad, Sharabhopanishad, Skandopanishad, Mahanarayanopanishad, Advaya Tarakopanishad, Rama Rahasyopanishad, Rama Tapanyupanishad, Vasudevopanishad, Mudgalopanishad, Shandilyopanishad, Pingalopanishad. Wow, referring to, I think, related to Pingala. So Pingalopanishad, Bhikshu Upanishad, Mahadupanishad, what is it? Sharirakopanishad, Yoga Shikhopanishad, Turiyatitopanishad, Turiya Atita Upanishad, Sanyasopanishad, Paramahamsa Parivrajakaopanishad. Wow. Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya. Malikopanishad, Avyaktopanishad, Ekaksharopanishad, Purnopanishad, Suryopanishad, Akshupanishad, Upanishad, Adhyatmopanishad, Kundikopanishad, Savitrupanishad, Atmopanishad, Pashupatopanishad, Param Brahmopanishad, Avadhutopanishad, Tripuratapanopanishad, Devyupanishad, Tripuropanishad, Katharudropanishad, Bhavanopanishad, Hridayopanishad, Yoga Kundalinyupanishad, Brahmopanishad, Rudrakshopanishad, Ganopanishad, Darshanopanishad, Tarasaropanishad, Mahavakyopanishad, Pancha Brahmopanishad, Pranagnihotropanishad, Gopala Tapanyupanishad, Krishnopanishad, Yajnavalkyopanishad, Varahopanishad, Shatyayanyupanishad, Hayagrivopanishad, Dattatreyopanishad, Garudopanishad, Kalyupanishad, Jabalyupanishad, Jabal is coming, Saubhagyopanishad, Saraswati Rahasyopanishad, Bahvrichopanishad, Muktikopanishad. Thus, there are 108 generally accepted Upanishads, of which 11 are the most important, as previously stated. Now, one name I definitely did not see in this list of 108 is Kalisantarana Upanishad. There is, so I think there are more than 108 then. Maybe they are lesser known Upanishads. And Kalisantarana Upanishad is very much accepted in our Gaudiya, but it is not in this 108 Upanishads, which is interesting. I saw something like Kali something Upanishad. Let me see. Kali Upanishad, you see? Kali Upanishad 103. Kali Upanishad. This is there, but there is no Kalisantarana Upanishad. Okay, so here 109. गौणवृत्य जेवा भाष्य करिलो आचार्य ताहार श्रवणे नाश होय सर्व कार्य. Sripad Shankaracharya has described all the Vedic literatures in terms of indirect meanings. One who hears such explanations is ruined. Now, this is definitely the translation, but again, important technical word which needs to be registered. Gauna vritti. Gauna vritti means by indirect meanings. Gauna, indirect meanings, the translation indirect meanings here is also a general translation, but there is also very specific understanding of this. Now, okay, so it just goes, okay, I'll just read the translation of 110. and there's a long purport on 110. But then I'll go somewhere else to actually explain this Mukhyana Gauna in more detail. Okay. ताहार नाहिक दोष ईश्वर आज्ञा पाया गौणार्थ करिलो मुख्य अर्थ आच्छादिया गौणार्थ करिलो मुख्य अर्थ आच्छादिया. Shankaracharya is not at fault, for it is under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he has covered the real purport of the Vedas. Okay. This translation is correct, but there is a very technical thing here. You see, Gaunartha, he emphasized on the Gaunartha, and the Mukhya Artha, Achhadya means to cover. So he covered the Mukhya Artha by doing Gaunartha. He did this indirect interpretation which covered the direct meaning and did a propaganda with indirect meaning. Okay, so to understand all of this technically, let's go to 1087.1 in the purport. Now, this is a long purport and there are very nice prayers to Lord Nrisimhadeva by Sridhar Swami. Okay, here. Srila Sridhar Swami elaborately analyzes this problem. What problem? Okay, I don't want to go into that because this is actually a different subject, so I don't want to go into that rabbit hole right now. But we will learn about something about Mukhya and Gauna and all of this. Sridhar Swami elaborately analyzes this problem in terms of the traditional discipline of Sanskrit poetics. We should consider that words have three kinds of expressive capacities called Shabdavrittis. So these are all technical things, and it is helpful for us to try to remember this, because then we will have a framework of understanding and analyzing Prabhupada's books, okay, and the scriptures in general. Shabdavrittis. So there are three kinds of expressive capacities called Shabdavrittis. These are the different ways a word conveys its meaning, distinguished as Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, and Gauna Vritti. The Shabda Vritti, termed Mukhya, is the primary literal meaning of a word. This is also known as Abhidha, a word's denotation, or dictionary meaning. Mukhya Vritti is further divided into two subcategories. Okay, there is the Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, and Gauna Vritti. Now, in Mukhya Vritti, there are subdivided into two categories, namely Rudhi and Yoga. A primary meaning is called Rudhi when it is based on conventional usage, and Yoga when it is derived from another word's meaning by regular etymological rules. Okay, so example is given for us to understand easily this thing. For example, the word go, cow, is an example of Rudhi, since its relation with its literal meaning is purely conventional. Okay, when we say go and cows, okay, that is understood. The denotation of the word pachaka, chef, on the other hand, is a yoga vritti through the word's derivation from the root pach, to cook, by addition of the agent suffix ka. So if you understand what is being said here, so pach means, the root word pach means to cook, and pachaka means one who cooks. So it is yoga vritti. It is as you know, as we have read here, yoga, when it is derived from another word's meaning by regular etymological rules. So here, chef is a word, but here the word used is pachaka, which means the one who cooks. So cooking is associated with the person who cooks. So pachaka, one who cooks, the person who cooks, is a chef. So another example I'll give you. Padapa. Padapa is a yoga vritti. Padapa means trees. Pada means foot or feet. Pa means panam, drinking. One who drinks through the feet or drinks to the foot. So because the trees take water from the ground and nourish themselves, so they're called padapa. One who drinks from the foot, but actually it's trees. So it is correct, and etymologically, but is related to something else. It is related to drinking through the foot. And who does that? That person, that is what we're referring to. Who cooks? Oh, it's the chef. Who drinks from the leg? Oh, it is a tree. So it is related, but it's not saying tree. It's saying the one who drinks from the leg. But it's tree. So pachaka is like that. So that's yoga vritti. But it is still conventional meaning because it is a logical etymological rules. If you use, it will come to that only. It's straightforward meaning, but described through a function like drinking or cooking or something like this. There is some association with something else, but it's a direct association. Yeah, so that is, so rudhi, go, cow is just direct cow, not like an animal with 4 legs and who gives milk. No, it is cow. Go, cow. That's a direct meaning. There is no association of anything else. So this is an association. This is called yoga vritti. Rudhi and yoga. These are both are mukhya vritti. All right. Beside its mukhya vritti, a primary meaning, beside its mukhya vritti or primary meaning, a word can also be used in a secondary metaphorical sense. This usage is called lakshana. Lakshana, metaphorical. The rule is that a word should not be understood metaphorically if its mukhya vritti makes sense in the given context. So words can be used metaphorically. Means we'll get into that explanation now. But if its mukhya vritti, if its straightforward meaning is clear, there is no need to go into metaphorical meaning. Even if such metaphorical meaning is kind of studied, it is only in supplementary way, to the main meaning, keeping it faithful to the mukhya vritti. One can do lakshana vritti to have another meaning that is congruent with the straightforward meaning. Okay. Okay, let's try to understand lakshana vritti. You have understood mukhya vritti, which has rudhi and yoga. Okay. Okay, so the rule is that a word should not be understood metaphorically if its mukhya vritti makes sense in the given context. Only after the mukhya vritti fails to convey a word's meaning may lakshana vritti be justifiably presumed. The function of lakshana is technically explained in the Kavya Shastras as an extended reference, pointing to something in some way related to the object of the literal meaning. Thus the phrase Gangayam Ghoshaha literally means the cowherd village in the Ganga. Now, this whole explanation of 1087.1 regarding Mukhya and Lakshana Vritti and all of this is, if you're wondering where it is coming from, it is actually from the Tattva Sandarbha. Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami explains. I did not know this until I read the Tattva Sandarbha. There I found that he was explaining these things in his Sarva Samvadini commentary on his own work, Shat Sandarbha. So I think it's in the main Anucheda or in the commentary that he mentioned these examples, exact examples, Gangayam, Ghosha, and all of this. So the Mukhya and Lakshana and everything. So this is just a complete transplantation of that explanation into this purport here. This is not a Prabhupada's purport, but it is Jiva Goswami's explanation. Okay. Thus, the phrase Gangayam Ghosha literally means the cowherd village in the Ganga. But that idea is absurd because there cannot be a village inside Ganga. So here Gangayam should rather be understood by its Lakshana to mean on the bank of the Ganga. The bank being something related to the river. So although Gangayam Ghosha, the village or the village in the Ganga is not a thing. Okay, village by the bank of the Ganga is related to Ganga, the bank of the Ganga. So you have to kind of imagine like that is what it would have meant. And that is because the direct meaning did not make sense. Village in the Ganga did not make sense. So then this secondary Lakshana Vritti can be applied where, okay, that doesn't make sense, the direct thing. So secondary meaning could have been on the bank of the Ganga. The bank being something related to the river. Gauna Vritti, okay, is a special kind of Lakshana where the meaning is extended to some idea of similarity. Whereas the bank of the river and the river, there is no similarity. There is relation between the river and the bank. It is by the river. But there's no similarity between the river and the bank. In fact, quite the opposite. But Gauna Vritti means a similarity. Okay. For example, in the statement, Simho Devadatta, Devadatta is a lion. Heroic Devadatta is metaphorically called a lion because of his lion-like qualities. It does not mean that Devadatta is actually a lion. He is a human being. But just like we say Simha Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as Simha Guru, which by the way is a phrase that is popular in ISKCON, Simha Guru. But originally when he was, during his time, the word that was used was not Simha Guru apparently. Acharya Keshari was the word used. Acharya Keshari. Kesari is a sweet. Keshari is quite the opposite. It's not sweet. It's a lion. One who has the mane, the lion's mane. Kesha. Kesha means hair. So the lion's mane, Keshari, the one who has this hair. So Keshari is lion. So Acharya Keshari was what he was called back then. Somehow I think Prabhupada mentioned the word Simhaguru, and that's how the Simhaguru word became popular in our movement. But apparently from the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur book that I am reading, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, it is Acharya Keshari. But either way, when we say Simhaguru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is not a lion. He is a guru. He came in the human form, but he is a Vaikuntha man. He is a pure devotee. But he was preaching so boldly. So the boldness is a similarity of the quality of the lion. So the lion has the boldness, and he roared with the boldness of a lion, the preaching of the message of Krishna. So this is a similarity. So this is Gauna Vritti. So when those words were used in those verses, just now we have read, so they are pointing to very specific technical, grammatical, poetical and prose rules, very specific Sanskrit rules, and how to interpret a text. So Mukhya Vritti by Achadya, so by hiding the Mukhya Vritti, the main meaning, you have taken a metaphorical meaning, Gauna Vritti, when the Mukhya Vritti is clear. That is not okay. And by the way, Vaishnava Acharyas also did, like for example, Putana. Putana is a demoness that Krishna killed in his early childhood. Now, that's a very Mukhya Vritti kind of explanation, and we should just accept it as it is. Krishna killed an actual demoness. But then there is a metaphorical understanding of Putana, which Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave in his article titled Putana. And I have explained this many times, this article, where he explained the false pseudo teachers of religion as Putanas. So Putana is a representation of such pseudo teachers who, just like her, came as if to serve Krishna ostensibly, but she came to actually poison him and kill him. So similarly, the pseudo teachers of religion, they externally look like they are serving the cause of religion, which is the mission of Krishna. So they look like they're serving Krishna, just like Putana offered her breast to be sucked by Krishna as if to serve him, but she wanted to kill him. So pseudo teachers of religion, they also come as if to serve Krishna, his mission, but actually their mission is to tell something else than what Krishna is saying, and thus kill his movement, kill the Krishna consciousness in the hearts of the people. The birth of Krishna consciousness in the heart of people, they want to suppress that. So the Kamsa was identified as the classic impersonalist who has as his assistants all these pseudo teachers of religion like the Putanas. So in this way, he gave a very metaphorical understanding, and he said also that just as Krishna has killed Putana, similarly, and when Krishna killed Putana, that's when Kamsa knew of the exact whereabouts of Krishna. Until then, he said to Putana, kill all the babies in the kingdom who have been born in the first 10 days or first 1 month or whatever. So only when she was killed by Krishna, then he knew exactly this is the person I need to kill. So every other demon after that was sent to Krishna only. So he said, just like Krishna's whereabouts were known after he killed Putana. So similarly, when we preach strongly and kill the propaganda of pseudo teachers of religion, the negative propaganda, by actually killing them, from completely decimating their philosophy, okay? Not killing them actually, literally, but killing that philosophy or the pseudo philosophies presented by pseudo teachers of religion, that's when the real personalist philosophy will take its birth in the society. Real Krishna consciousness in the society will take prominence when such defeat happens of the pseudo teachers of religion. So the preachers of Krishna consciousness movement should kill such propaganda by strong preaching, and that's only then will the personal understanding of Krishna consciousness will be spread, will be manifest in society. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave a very metaphorical understanding of Putana, Krishna killing Putana. Hide this. Okay, so it's a very metaphorical understanding. So, but it is still valid because it is faithful to the Mukhya Vritti. In fact, it is drawing parallels from the Mukhya Vritti, from the actual descriptions, and explaining metaphorically being chaste to the Mukhya Vritti. But if you want to try to hide the Mukhya Vritti and through Lakshana Vritti explain something opposite, contrary to what the Mukhya Vritti is saying, that's when it is a big, big problem. And we should not invent such metaphorical understandings unless we are very, very sure of what we're speaking. In the beginning, at least, we should not try until we become a little more experienced. I wanted to give another example, and I wanted to share this for quite a while, but somehow did not happen. But still, since the topic came, I wanted to read what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote as the explanation for Nrisimha killing Hiranyakashipu in the theistic exhibition. So he called his theistic exhibitions as Pradarshani. Pradarshani means exhibit, basically. But it has his own. He has his own internal, more profound meaning of pradarshini, because he said this is real seeing of Krishna, prakrishrupena darshan, because not just the form but also the explanation that is explaining the the leela that is depicted in the diorama. Diorama is those statues, so exhibits. So he had descriptions. So okay, there is Nrisimhamurti killing Hiranyakashipu, and Prahlad was there. You know what the description he gave for that? He did not just show, oh, Lord Nrisimhadev, the divine protector, killing the Hiranyakashipu and saved devotee Prahlad, and he left it at that. No, he preached deep philosophy with exhibits, as deep as his lectures. So I'll just read what he wrote, or rather, I can actually show it in here, because why not? It's fascinating. It's really fascinating how he did not shy away. So everything that he used in Krishna's service was very intense. He did not want to do just okay, lectures are the main thing, but books are the main thing, but these theistic exhibitions just attract the people. No. Attract all kinds of people. Okay, those who are not so intellectually they don't have intellectual capacity so much, normal people. Okay, they can look at the vigrahas, I mean the exhibits, and then wow, this is so nice, this is so nice. But those who are more educated and more, just seeing some toys or some dolls, it doesn't really spur them as much intellectually. For them, there's a description, and let me actually read out to you. Let me truth kills antitheism. Okay, here it is. What page is this? 411. Okay, here we go. Where is it? 412, 411. I will change the screen to this one. Yeah, here it is. Okay, let me share the screen. This is, you have to read this. I mean, this is a departure from the topic of the session, but honestly, it's related, because it's Gauna Vritti employed by Vaishnava. Okay, and it is fascinating how he employed it. Okay, so this is I know it's small for you, but after the Zoom, for the one who's watching post live, they can actually zoom into this screen if they want. They can zoom in. You can make it sideways, I mean landscape, and then zoom in and see only the screen, and you can see it clearly. But now I think during live you can't. Okay, so this was the title. For instance, the diorama. Okay, let me read it from the beginning of the paragraph because it's interesting. To help convey the intended philosophical message, devotees were assigned to escort groups of people around the stalls and explain the subject. Pamphlets in Bengali and English circulated for a nominal price, presented novel explications or explanations of the well-known pastimes on display. Now, people will know Nrisimhadev killed Prahlad. Okay, fine, that's happened somewhere. So I don't find it relevant to my life. Okay, so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has this unique way of making it relevant to our life. Just like the Putana article makes the metaphorical explanation of the Putana, Krishna killing Putana, is so relevant for us that we can see it everywhere. Oh, Surah teachers of religion. Okay, we have to preach strongly. There is something we can do about it. So that is important. Acharya is not just describing some Leela of Krishna, oh, that was so nice. It was not just a fairy tale description or some storytelling competition or some exercise. No. It was connecting Krishna's Leelas to our day-to-day reality in a way that is so unique. So this description also does that. Okay. Presented novel explications of the well-known pastimes on display. For instance, the diorama depicting the killing of Hiranyakashipu by Nrisimhadeva entitled, you see how he titled it, Absolute Truth Kills Anti-Theism or Empiricism. He did not say Nrisimhadeva kills Prahlad. That's everybody knows by looking at especially in India, everybody would know that. Nrisimha Hiranyakashipu, Nrisimha killing Hiranyakashipu and saving Prahlad. Everyone. But he's saying absolute truth kills anti-theism or empiricism, including the following text written by Srila Saraswati Thakur himself. You see how he explained? This was the explanation for the exhibit of Narasimha. The innate insufficiency and utter delusiveness of empiric wisdom is not brought home to the empiricist till he actually realizes the superior contra-existence of the absolute. I think the the one who's reading will be like reeling. He will be reeling. He may not be afraid of Narasimha, but now he'll be afraid. Empiric wisdom means by our senses, like wisdom gathered through exercise of our senses, what we can see, what we can rationally conclude or infer or something like that with normal sensory evidence and a little bit of mental and intellectual exercise. But spiritual is entirely different, exists on a different plane. So the innate, that means the natural insufficiency or utter and utter delusiveness of empiric wisdom. So it is delusiveness. There's a delusion, an insufficiency, because our senses, we cannot understand everything with our senses. We cannot understand the Supreme Lord with our senses. We cannot even understand ourselves with the senses. So the innate insufficiency and utter delusiveness of empiric wisdom is not brought home to the empiricist. That means what? Not brought home. What bringing home? That means is not understood by the empiricist. Like you say, I want to drive home the point. Drive home means what? You're driving to home or what? No. Drive home means make you understand. I want to drive home the point that means I want to make you understand the point. So, brought home. So the empiricist who tries to understand everything with his senses cannot understand that his method of understanding, gaining knowledge is insufficient, and it is full of delusion, because you have imperfect senses, you have tendency to cheat, you have tendency to commit mistakes. So there is a lot of insufficiency in this process. But the empiricist does not understand this till he actually realizes the superior contra-existence of the absolute. Contra-existence means totally opposite. Like, for example, Krishna's form is Satchidananda. Our current form, when we say God has a form, people will think, oh, God has form like this, like mine. But our body is Asat, it's not eternal. Achit, it's not full of knowledge, it's full of ignorance. We don't even know our body, how our body works. That's it. That's one layer of ignorance. Another layer of ignorance is because of this body, now I think I am this body. I am in ignorance. I don't even know who I am because of this body. So it's a network of ignorance, Achit. So it's Asat, Achit, and Nirananda. It's Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, Anityam Asukham. So it is not eternal, it is miserable. This body is a temple of diseases, as it is said. Temple of diseases. It only gives pain. In fact, people work hard day and night to survive, just to maintain this body. This body, for this body, we have to work so hard. So it's a pain. And eventually, this body will decay and diseased and then dies. So, Achit, Asat, Nirananda. Whereas Krishna's is Satchit, Ananda, contra, complete opposite. But existence. It's not a nullification of existence. No. It is existence, but contra existence, completely contrary to the way material existence works. So if we understand this, now we read the sentence. The innate insufficiency and utter delusiveness of empiric wisdom is not brought home to the empiricist, till he actually realizes the superior contra existence of the absolute. Once he understands the superior existence of the absolute truth, then he will start to realize, oh wow, yeah, his senses and the mind interest totally cannot reach the absolute truth. He cannot understand that until he realizes the superior contra existence of the absolute truth. So that's what he's saying. Now going forward, see, just one line, you have to explain it so much to even make you understand. Ordinary, even devotees cannot understand this. But this is the kind of explanations he gave for the exhibits for the public to read. Just imagine. The destructive and terrible face of the transcendental reality is necessarily the first positively disillusioning experience of the absolute to any challenging empiricist to whom the absolute is pleased to disclose himself as an act of his causeless favor. Beautifully written. We'll read that again. The destructive and terrible face of the transcendental reality is necessarily the first positively disillusioning experience of the absolute to any challenging empiricist to whom the absolute is pleased to disclose himself as an act of his causeless favor. So, what verse comes to mind when you read that sentence? Mrityu sarvaharas chaham, kalosme loka kshayakrit pravritta. So, Mrityu sarvaharas chaham. We are in this delusion that, oh, with my senses, I can find out, if he doesn't conform to my sensory experience, it's not there. There's no proof of the absolute truth or something like that. He can say all he wants. But when death comes, he will have to face the destructive and terrible face of the transcendental reality as death. So Nrisimhadeva, with his destructive and terrible face, is transcendental reality. But for the demon, like a soul like the demon Hiranyakashipu, would have to face the supreme truth in that way, as death. You see, and is necessarily the first positively disillusioning. Until then, he is an illusion that there is no God. But when death comes, he has to submit. Because until then, he can say that I don't submit to any God, there is no God. But when death comes, he cannot not submit. He has to submit. So, that is the first disillusioning experience. Positively disillusioning experience. Because now, you know you have no power. Your speaking power, your thinking power, your intellectual powers, your monetary power, your influential power, none of that will work. None of that. And in fact, if anything, all those powers will be stripped off of you and will be rendered absolutely helpless. Absolutely helpless. So when such a destructive force acts on us like death, then that's the first positively disillusioning experience of the absolute. To any challenging empiricist, why he said first positively disillusioning? For the person who does not challenge the existence of God, he can see in many, many ways God. But the one who specifically opposes, very much adhering to his sensory experience, like the scientists. Oh, if we don't see it, we don't believe it. That kind of seeing is believing kind of empiricist. For them, death will be the first experience of God. But for the one who's not challenging, he can see God's presence everywhere, in everything. Rasoham apsu kaunte, when you drink water, it's a taste of, and that taste is Krishna. So that is already the first positively disillusioning experience already. So there are many, many such disillusioning experiences for the non-challenger. But for the challenging empiricist, death. To whom the absolute is pleased to disclose himself as an act of his consciousness. So even that death is an act of favor done by God, Krishna, to disclose himself. Hey, okay, you had your time saying that I was not there, but you now have to accept that you can't live. When I decide to take away, then you cannot say anything. So I am the real owner, I am the real boss. You have no say in this. So when he says like that, then that is his first experience of absolute submission to authority. So as long as he did not have that mood for absolute submission, he thought he had some power, but that power is only given to him by the Supreme Absolute Truth, Krishna. But when he was given the chance to speak in glorification of the Lord, he chose to deny and defy God. He misused the power that he was given, and when it is taken away from him, that's when he realizes, yeah, actually, you know what, I don't have control. So the retributive aspect of the process need not blind the sincere inquirer of the Absolute to the overwhelming mercy of this method of appearance of the Absolute that alone could be acceptable from the point of view of the challenger. This is convoluted English for us, but it makes perfect sense. The retributive, what is retribution? Which is basically chastisement, right? Let's be sure about that. Retribution, punishment, yes, inflicted on someone as vengeance for a wrong or criminal act. Retributive. Okay. So the chastisement, the punishment aspect, the punishment giving aspect, the retributive aspect of the process, the punishing aspect of the process need not blind the sincere inquirer of the Absolute to the overwhelming mercy of this method of appearance of the Absolute that alone could be acceptable from the point of view of the challenger. The sentence goes on, but I'm going to pause there, so we understand everything there. So, for the sincere inquirer, when God comes as in such a ferocious form, the sincere devotee need not be blinded or need not be shocked and jolted by such appearance, because he should understand that it is the overwhelming mercy of the Lord to come in front of even the denier of God in the form of death. So when he comes in the form of death, and the like there was one saying, in 2012, the famous physicist Stephen Hawking, he said there is no God. 2019, when he died, so there was this joke. 2012, Stephen Hawking says there is no God. 2019, God says there is no Stephen Hawking. Well, he will always have the last laugh. God will always have the last laugh. So, but it need not blind the sincere inquirer of the Absolute to the overwhelming mercy. So that means we should not be blind to the mercy of Krishna that is being exhibited by this terrible appearance of the Absolute Truth. It is actually the mercy of the Absolute Truth. So we should not be blinded. We should not be blind to that mercy there. With that alone, so this method of appearance as death, as the most fearful and terrible face of Nrisimhadeva, you see how he's tying Nrisimhadeva to death for the anti-theist, that is Hiranyakashipu. So he's making it relevant for us. If I will challenge God, then this is what I will be facing. I'll face the terrible face and destructive and terrible face of transcendental reality. Transcendental reality will prove to be destructive and terrible for me. And that is good for me still, because death, when it comes, then I learn, but then, okay, I'm going to face death. But is that the goal? We have to understand favorably. So anyway, let's read on. This method of appearance of the Absolute that alone could be acceptable from the viewpoint of from the viewpoint of the challenger, he could only realize God in the form of death. Otherwise, he does not know what submission is. A devotee, during his life, he will submit to God, but the atheist, he will not submit. So this is his first submission to death. So that alone, death alone can be the only acceptable method of appearance of the Absolute for the challenger. Although the latter has to pay for such experience by undergoing the suffering of total destruction of his delusive personality, which is represented as his soul by his own empirical judgment. Okay, so this is even deeper. This is even more subtle. So, you see, his delusive personality means the person who's in the bodily concept, he thinks that this body is him, the person. This body is the person. So his delusive personality. So the price for knowing God in this way, in this destructive way, is that he has to give up his own body for that. Because that's the final moment, the death. So the latter has to pay for such experience of the absolute truth by undergoing the suffering of total destruction of his delusive personality, which is misrepresented as his soul. So I am the soul, I am the Atma, but I think this body is me. I think the body to be my identity. That's a misrepresentation by his own empirical judgment. His sensory understanding, his intellectual capacities, all of them have convinced him to think that this body is the person, which is a delusion. So that delusive personality, that body, which is misrepresented as the soul, has to die. That is the payment for the experience of the absolute truth in such a destructive and terrible phase. The disemboweling process indicates the rottenness of the physical body and the necessity of its destruction for enabling the conditioned soul to realize the nature of perfect unconditional spiritual existence of the soul as the normal state. This is very deep. The disemboweling process means what? The bowels, the intestines of Hiranyakashipu were taken out. His entrails were pulled out. Entrails means the intestines. So this disemboweling process of taking out these indicates the rottenness of the physical body and the necessity of its destruction for enabling the conditioned soul to realize the nature of perfect, unconditional spiritual existence of the soul as the normal state. This is very deep. So, when the intestines are pulled out, it's a gory scene. Oh, that's horrible, right? So the illusion that this body is beautiful and all of that, we have to understand. Okay, we have to, with spiritual knowledge, we have to understand that this body is made up of disgusting elements and that's not the soul. And we should be absolutely disgusted with material bodily existence so that our attraction for this body should be completely destroyed in order for us to realize the nature of perfect unconditional spiritual existence of the soul as the normal state. So we have to have disgust, just like when we see the entrails all coming out. Yee, disgusting. So he's going so deep in this explanation that that and disemboweling process indicates the rottenness of the physical body. The physical body is just a rotten thing, and we're thinking us to be that physical body, which is such a rotten thing. No, and the necessity of this destruction. So we should not have any more material body. As long as we take on these miserable material bodies, we cannot understand our perfect unconditional spiritual existence. So we have to quit this material body. I mean, rebirth. Not just this body, but we have to quit taking on material bodies altogether. The necessity of its destruction for enabling the conditioned soul to realize the nature of the perfect unconditional spiritual existence of the soul as the normal state. Sri Nrisimhadeva, even in the light of these considerations, must however appear to empirical judgment as presenting the front of the retributive personality of brute force. Nrisimhadeva, even in the light of these considerations, must however appear to empirical judgment as presenting the front of the retributive personality of brute force, which is the only proof of real existence to the empiricist, but in singular and somewhat grotesque combination with the principle of rationality detectable only in the human personality. Wait a second. I understood it when I read it earlier. So the first part, let's decode the first part. So actually, what he's saying is, although Nrisimhadev pulled out the intestines and he came with this terrible face and fearsome roars and everything, he's actually showing mercy to Hiranyakashipu, and he's showing us the process of self-realization by killing Hiranyakashipu. How is it tied to self-realization? Because the body, which is disgusting, well, this is the insides of the body. You're thinking it's a nice packaged, and you're proud of this because of this body, external features. You're so proud and you deny me. But then, well, look at what is inside. So be disgusted with material existence. This is what it's all about. You're attracted to this. And because of this thing, you are denying me, who am your complete friend. So I'm showing you by my mercy what is this material world? I mean, what is this material life? It's a miserable thing. And then I will come as death, mrityu sarvahara chaham. I will take away everything from you anyway. It's not yours. So please understand that I'm teaching you self-realization. So he's being merciful. Nrisimhadev is being merciful here. But he's saying, Sri Nrisimhadev, even in the light of these considerations, although he's merciful and he's showing himself to the person who denied him in the form of death, he's showing himself. Yeah, because Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, he doesn't have to show himself to anyone. But to the empiricist who denies him, he will come as death and still show himself at the final point. That's his mercy. So that death is not, it's fearful. It's a fearsome force, death. It's not a pleasant circumstance, right? So that is what Nrisimhadev is. Although Nrisimhadev was real and his personality, his Leela was real, but then metaphorically, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is comparing him to death, which is the fearsome, terrible face of the transcendental reality. That this material body is temporary, you, the soul, are eternal. And this is the mortal body that you're so attracted to. So look at this, all these intestines. You like it? Like it? No? Blood? You like it? No? Okay. So that's what you think you have been. So understand yourself and come out of this miserable material world. Come to me. So in light of that, considerations must, however, appear to empirical judgment as presenting the front of the retributive personality of brute force. He must, for the empiricist, this is the only thing he will understand. Just like some people only understand the stick beating. Otherwise, they will not behave properly. A criminal, if he has a criminal tendencies, the only reason he may not commit a crime is because, okay, there's punishment. I'm scared of punishment. I don't know whether, I still think it's right to steal because I want it. But yeah, if I steal, I'll get punished. So I don't want punishment. So I'll not steal. So he's only refraining from stealing because of the punishment. Because he dreads the punishment. So for people who do not understand things properly, and for them this is the only proper, this retributive personality of brute force, this is the only thing they'll understand. Like animals, some animals just understand the stick, otherwise they don't understand. You talk to them, try to make them understand and plead with them, they'll stick, then you'll understand. So which is the only proof of real existence to the empiricist, because he only sees, empiricist is with his senses. So for him, anything beyond the senses, he does not accept. So okay, to your senses, then you can see that death is coming now. That's the only thing you can understand. So, Sri Nrisimhadeva, even in the light of these considerations, although he's teaching valuable lessons, but must, however, appear in to empirical judgment as presenting the front of the retributive personality. Front means the facade, the. Although there is mercy in the background, but in the front, externally, he's appearing to be this absolutely merciless person who's just ripping apart, Hiranyakashipu, and then in full anger, there is no control over his emotions. Actually, he's very, very controlling. He's exactly doing the thing that he wanted to do. He has full control over what he's doing, but that front is as if this uncontrollable rage, which is the only proof of real existence to the empiricist, but in singular and somewhat grotesque combination with the principle of rationality. Singular means peculiar, or let's see what other definitions come to singular, denoting or referring to just one person or thing. No, there is another meaning. There is more meaning to singular. Exceptionally good or great, or it can also mean strange or eccentric in some respect. Singular statement, strange, exceptionally good or great. So great, strange. So, but in singular or strange and somewhat grotesque combination with the principle of rationality, detectable only in the human personality. So, first of all, as humans, we have rational thinking. Animals do not have that gift. We humans have, and therefore our actions are judged, where the animals' actions are not. Okay. I mean, as much as I can understand, it's in singular and strange and somewhat grotesque combination with the principle of rationality, detectable only in the human personality, which is the only proof of real existence of the empiricist. So his death, is the only proof, but in strange and somewhat grotesque combination. Because the rationality, because rational explanation means these empiricists, they only rationally think. Rationale, it doesn't appeal to my rationale. What is your rationale? Your reasoning and everything is based on sensory experience. So in human being, at least there is rational. So to appeal to rationality, the only way you can understand is in this grotesque way, in strange and grotesque way. But this human beings are supposed to understand. An animal may die, but it does not understand what is death and what is life. It dies. But a human being can think about death, and to make him think about death, the unstoppable force in life, so it has to be. It is grotesque. It is strange. That is the destruction of his rational capability is the only proof. Strangely, singularly, is the only proof, only rational proof of the existence of the absolute. The destruction of his rational capability is the only proof of, is the only rational proof of the absolute truth. That is strange, but that's the only way he can understand. So this is what I understand. So you can see how deep that explanation is. If you want to explain Nrisimhadeva and killing Hiranyakashipu, and this is how you explain, it's actually very, very applicable to our life. So I should not remain a foolish empiricist. Then this will be the result. I will face him at the time of death. I should rather understand, like you see Prahlad Maharaj though, he's not scared of Nrisimhadev. He's not. In fact, he is garlanding Nrisimhadev. Of course, this Narasimha Leela, so many things, so many lessons. In fact, the anger of Narasimhadeva was because his devotee was harassed by a demon, and he got that angry because that anger is to protect his devotee, Prahlad. So that is another lesson we can learn. Vaishnava, how we should, if another Vaishnava is offended, how we should respond, like to Narasimhadeva. But so many lessons. But you see how all of that is fine. But what can I change? Now, this explanation, there is a very deep reflection of what Narasimhadeva is doing. By his killing Hiranyakashipu, he is teaching self-realization, and how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur brought out that lesson in a metaphorical way that is so resonant, but it's always faithful to the original Mukhya Vritti. Although it is Gauna Vritti, what he did here, it's faithful to the Mukhya Vritti, and it's another version, another explanation. So I wanted to show that. We went into a big rabbit hole there, but yeah, this is something very interesting how he explained. But now let me go back to that part of Gauna Vritti and Mukhya Vritti. All right. Okay. Look at that. Yeah, Truth Seeker. I have had some conversations with him. So he's saying Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's English is elite. Absolutely elite. I mean, devotees wouldn't understand this even. Like many devotees wouldn't understand this. It takes a lot of reflection and a lot of. And even then, we have to really understand it through Prabhupada. Only through Prabhupada's mercy can we really understand that English, because we have to translate in our head as devotees. How would Prabhupada describe this if it was in Prabhupada's words? That translation you got to do in the head, and then, oh, so that's what he's meaning. So through Prabhupada's mercy only can we understand what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is even saying. So going back to here, 1087.1 purport here. So that is Gauna Vritti. It's a special case of Lakshana Vritti. Lakshana Vritti is, as you know, Gangayam Kosha, like the village in the Ganga, but it doesn't make sense. Village in the Ganga. So village by the bank of the Ganga. Okay, so it's related somewhat, bank. But Gauna is having the same guna. It comes from the word guna, the root. So it has a guna. So lion-like. So Simho Devadatta. Devadatta is a lion. Means he's like a lion. Similar to a lion. What is similar? Is his hair similar to a lion? No. His boldness or his heroic nature. Oh, okay. So that also has to be, like, we have to be clear about what it is that is the similarity. So the quality is similar. So that's the what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did with the Putana article and this Nrisimhadeva explanation is Gauna Vritti basically, but it is valid. It is not covering. Achhadiya is not happening. If you see, we will go back. Wait a second. Okay, here see. What is this? 7.110. Gauna artha korila mukhya artha achhadiya. So with Gauna artha, if I try to achhadiya, if I try to hide the mukhya vritti and kind of give a contrarian explanation to it, that's disservice. But if the Gauna artha is chaste and draws parallel from the mukhya vritti, then that is beautiful. And that's what Vaishnava Acharyas do, and which is kind of stated in this verse 11.21.35. Veda brahmatma vishayas trikanda vishaya ime parokshvada rishayah paroksham mama cha priyam. The Vedas, divided into three divisions, ultimately reveal the living entity as pure spirit soul. The Vedic seers and mantras, however, deal in esoteric terms, and I also am pleased by such confidential descriptions. The Vedic seers given esoteric terms. So indirect. Let's see, you see the actual word to word meaning. Parokshavada, speaking esoterically. Paroksham, indirect explanation. Esoteric means like not understood by many people. The opposite of esoteric is exoteric, which is understood by many people, commonly understood. Esoteric is not easily understood by people. Like you see the description of Nrisimhadeva, it's not easily understood by people, but if you really understand it, it's absolutely applicable. I can actually internalize that, and it can serve a practical lesson to me instead of just this disconnected story that had happened millions of years ago, and that's all what it is. And there is no practical thing that I need to constantly reflect on if that Leela has to be remembered. Instead of that, now I have that Leela teaching me something that is so practical, that is so useful as an introspective tool for myself. Where am I standing in my thought process, in my mindset? How I am approaching the absolute truth? How am I approaching spiritual life? Am I understanding the horrible nature of this material body? Why am I attracted to this body? So, you see, it serves as a great tool for introspection, impeccable tool for introspection, such Gaunavritti explanation. Acharyas can do this. Vaishnava Acharyas who are authorized, they can do this. Otherwise, Shankaracharya also, he was authorized to cover the Mukhya Vritti. And then, so he was also authorized by Narayana. And therefore, he could do that. Otherwise, it requires empowerment to do something like that destructive. And Shiva, by nature, he's in charge of Tamogun, which is the guna for destruction. The Sattvagun is for maintenance, Rajogun is for creation, and Tamogun is for destruction. And Lord Shiva, being in charge of the Tamogun, he is in charge of destruction. And it does not only happen at the time of universal cataclysm, where everything is destroyed, the whole universe, but also he destroys, say in this case, as Shankaracharya, he came and destroyed the bona fide understanding, the straightforward understanding of religious principles. So he destroyed religious principles by indirect explanation, which is also a Rudra principle, destruction, which is Tamogun, which is opposite of knowledge. Tama means ignorance, darkness. So, now going back, is this the one? No. Okay. Let me go back to that. This is like rabbit hole into rabbit hole into rabbit hole, like that we're going. But worth it because it's good to understand it properly. Okay. Rudhi, yoga, that is Mukhya Vritti. In Lakshana Vritti, there is a category of Lakshana Vritti which is Gauna Vritti, special kind of Lakshana where the meaning is extended to some idea of similarity. Devadatta, lion. Okay. In contrast, heroic Devadatta is metaphorically called a lion because of his lion-like qualities. In contrast, the example of the general kind of Lakshana, namely Gangayam Ghoshaha, involves a relationship not of similarity but of location. In this verse, okay, so I think still the explanation is going on. In this first verse of the 87th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj expresses doubt as to how the words of the Vedas can refer to the absolute truth by any of the valid kinds of Shabda Vritti. So yeah, actually the verse itself, his question was, how can Shabda, which is a material thing, can explain transcendence? If the Vedas are made of sounds that is material, then how can it describe transcendence? When it is, he is adhokshaja. Adha krita akshaja jnanam iti adhokshaja smritaha. So, adha krita akshaja jnanam. Akshaja jnanam means, aksha means eyes, ja means beginning with eyes, all our senses. Akshaja jnanam means empirical knowledge derived from sensory exercise. or intellectual or psychological exercise, mental exercise. Also, another meaning of akshaja means A is the first alphabet and ksha is the last alphabet in Sanskrit language. Akshaja, then A to Z, all the alphabets. So, whatever words you can construct is with these alphabets. So, A to ksha. So, all the words of the Vedas are within this A to ksha, are manipulations of different arrangements of these alphabets. So, akshaja jnanam, the Lord is adhokshaja, is beyond sensory perception and any description of any kind that is done with alphabets. So, how can he be described by Shabda Vritti, whether Mukhya or Lakshana or Gauna or whatever? So, that's the question. So, the technicality of Shabda Vritti is explained here. That's why, to make us understand what it is all about. What is he exactly asking? Whether direct or indirect or whatever it is, how can words describe the absolute truth? That was the doubt. So this whole chapter goes on to explain this whole thing and the praise of the personified Vedas, which is one of the most explained chapters by the acharyas, and they have written extensive purports and they're really relishing the whole topic. Although many devotees who do not read deeply, even I myself, I mean, when I was reading for the first time the Krishna book, the 87th chapter, the praise of the personified Vedas, were like, okay, when is it going to end? I was thinking like, I mean, it's offensive, I know, but because of my contaminated position, I was thinking like that. And it's actually very, very deep and it's very, very instructive, but it is also very intellectually demanding. Now, in the first verse of the 87th chapter, Parishad Maharaj expresses doubt as to how the words of the Vedas can refer to the absolute truth by any of the valid kinds of Shabda Vritti. He asks, Katham Sakshat Charanti. How can the Vedas directly describe Brahman by Rudha Mukhya Vritti, literal meaning based on convention? After all, the absolute is anirdeshya, inaccessible to designation. And how can the Vedas even describe Brahman by Gauna Vritti, metaphor based on similar qualities? So, Mukhya Vritti you cannot describe because how can you describe? Because it's anirdeshya. It cannot be like ascertained what it actually is. Because none of the descriptions of this world is similar to the description of the absolute. And if I want to, okay, it's not similar, but okay, here is Gauna Vritti. Maybe metaphorically you can understand. How can? So either by direct or by indirect explanations, how can the absolute truth be explained in words? Which is a very, very deep and valid question. The Vedas are Gauna Vrittayaha, full of qualitative descriptions, but Brahman is Nirguna, without qualities. Obviously, a metaphor based on similar qualities cannot apply in this case of something that has no qualities. Furthermore, Parikshit Maharaj points out that Brahman is Sad Asataha Param. Sat Asataha Param, beyond all causes and effects, having no connection with any manifest existence, subtle or gross. The absolute cannot be expressed by either Yoga Vritti, a meaning derived etymologically, or Lakshana, metaphor, since both require some relationship of Brahman to other entities, which is not the case. Thus, King Parikshit is puzzled as to how the words of the Vedas can directly describe the absolute truth. Now, the actual truth of the matter is, although there is no similarity in the nature of things, but this material world is a direct and perverted reflection of the real world. And the reflection, like if there is a mango tree on the bank of the river or the lake, and from the other side of the lake, if I see a mango tree upside down in the reflection, now it resembles the mango tree in reality, but if I actually go and look for the mango fruits, there is nothing in the reflection. There is no fruit, there is no tree there, nothing. But there is a, and the whole mango tree in the reflection is an illusion. But because it mirrors the reality, therefore we can understand. Therefore, it is Krishna's mercy that this world is an actual perverted reflection of the absolute reality, because if there is no connection, then there's just zero way for us to understand anything. For example, even relationships. Here we have 5 kinds of relationship: appreciation, passive appreciation, active service, friendship, brotherhood, and then there is parenthood, and then there is conjugal love. 5 broad categories of relationships that is here to be found in this world. So we can relate to that. Now it is said that it has to be reposed on Krishna. So the relationships exist there also, but without the perversion of or the miserable nature of the relationships in this world. The misery doesn't exist. So the happiness in the relationships here is illusory. Just like the fruit on the mango tree in the reflection is illusory. There's no fruit there. It looks like fruit, there's nothing there. Similarly, it looks like happiness here, but there's nothing there. It's an illusion. But the real happiness, the real fruit is on the real tree. So similarly, the real happiness is there with Krishna, with the same relationship, similar looking relationship. But the whole dynamics of the relationship is different because you are actually thinking of Krishna's pleasure, whereas here in every relationship, I'm thinking of my pleasure. And so there is a vast difference between the nature of these two relationships, but there is similarity as well. So the reflection, the material world being a reflection of the spiritual world, perverted reflection, upside down reflection of the spiritual world helps. Because then we have now a way to at least gauge, to get some understanding about the nature of the absolute truth. Even though we're not qualified to actually see the absolute truth with our spiritual senses. Even with material senses, we can appreciate the absolute truth. There is a way. That is Krishna's mercy that he has created this material world in such a way that we can actually draw lessons from it and contemplate on the absolute truth, which is otherwise it's not possible otherwise. So anyway, that was Parishad Maharaj's question, but you can understand what is Mukhya and Gauna and its relation and why those things are important for us to understand in the Mayavada and Vaishnava way of understanding the Vedic literature as well, because it is important where the deception happens. Okay, so that's that. What's the time? 9:30. We have just done one verse today and gone into some rabbit holes, but I think we'll go a little more. We have done 109 as well, yes, to be fair. 110 we have done the translation. We'll do it again. Gauna vritya jeva bhasha korilo acharya tahara shravane nasha hoy sarva karya. Shripad Shankaracharya has described all the Vedic literatures in terms of indirect meanings. One who hears such explanations is ruined. ताहर नाहे का दोष ईश्वर आज्ञा पाया गौणार्थ करिलो मुख्य अर्थ आच्छादिया. Shankaracharya is not at fault, for it is under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he has covered the real purport of the Vedas. Purport. The Vedic literature is to be considered a source of real knowledge, but if one does not take it as it is, one will be misled. For example, the Bhagavad Gita is an important Vedic literature that has been taught for many years. But because it was commented upon by unscrupulous rascals, people derived no benefit from it, and no one came to the conclusion of Krishna consciousness. Since the purport of the Bhagavad Gita is now being presented as it is, however, within 4 or 5 short years, thousands of people all over the world have become Krishna conscious. That is the difference between direct and indirect explanations of the Vedic literature. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Mukhya vritye shei artha parama mahatva. This is actually a very important line. Mukhya vritya shei artha parama mahatva. To teach the Vedic literature according to its direct meaning without false commentary is glorious. This is somewhat related to the article I have written recently about the as it is understanding. I've written an article on my Substack blog on the as it is understanding, what it means to understand as it is. And there can be many understandings, as it is understandings from the Vedic literature. Pratishloke pratyakshare nanarthakoy Krishna tulya bhagavat vibhu sarvashray. So the words of the Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatam are so potent that each and every word, each and every line has so many meanings. And all of them are as it is. Like Atmarama verse, written by, explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He explained the Atmarama verse in 61 different ways. And all of them are as it is. None of them are not. So he took the dictionary word meanings of all of these words and then explained it accordingly. So there can be multiple meanings, and sometimes it can be dictionary meanings like Mukhya Vritti, and sometimes meaning can be in Abhidha Vritti, Lakshana or Gauna Vritti as well. Like I have explained, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had Gauna Vritti explanations which are perfectly valid. All of them are as it is explanations. So what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did with his explanations like that is permeated the Leela of Nrisimhadeva everywhere. Now it is living in every one of us to examine ourselves. That's why if you see Karmashayam Randhaya Randhaya Om Tama Grasa Grasa Om Swaha. So if you see in the 5th canto there is a prayer to Nrisimhadeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahanarsimhaya Namo Tejas Tejase Avir Avir Bhava Vajranakha Vajra Damshtra Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Bhuishtha Om Kshraum. So that verse is there. So there the prayer by Prahlad Maharaj is kill the demon of my material desires, kill my ignorance, destroy my ignorance. So that is what is represented by Hiranyakashipu. He is a personification of ignorance. And that is not just a historical personality that we, okay, yeah, that was a gory scene, yeah. No, it is happening right now. Okay, so now that Narasimha Leela is now can permeate in every contemplative person's mind, and it can exist there to purify the one person who is contemplating the explanation that is given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So you can see how it is explained by Vaishnava Acharyas. But you see, so Mukhya Vritti Shreya Artha Parama Mahatva. The important thing about the as it is understanding is exegesis and eisegesis. And I have explained this in that article. Exegesis is to understand it in context with the proper weight as intended by the author. Okay, with authorial intent, understanding it. But eisegesis is when we impose our own ideas or intent on the text. Now, while it is not the standard for modern literary understanding, but there is place for eisegesis provided we first understand the exegesis, the original intended meaning of anything. Like you see, the way Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained Putana and Narasimha, those Leelas, is first, he's very clear on what actually happened historically. Understanding that very, very well, now he removed the context and applied it in a different context and explained it in a way that is contextually always relevant, instead of it being just this a thing that happened far in the past. No, it is now applicable to every one of us, every single moment. So anyway, reading on. Mukhya Vritti Shreyartha Parama Mahatva. To teach the Vedic literature according to its direct meaning without false commentary is glorious. Unfortunately, Sri Shankaracharya, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, compromised between atheism and theism in order to cheat the atheists and bring them to theism. And to do so, he gave up the direct method of Vedic knowledge and tried to present a meaning which is indirect. It is with this purpose that he wrote his Shariraka Bhashya commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, to bring the atheists to theism. But what happened is that bridge was used by people in the theist group to go to the atheist. That was the unintended consequence of the very valid mission of Shankaracharya of bringing atheists or Buddhists to the Vedic fold. That was his original mission, but then unintended consequences. It was kind of necessary in one way, because only when such challenges are presented will the truth come out even more distinctively and gloriously in contrast to the untruth. So when it is challenged, when the truth is challenged, the full power of the truth is on display. And this is what happened when Shankaracharya presented his Shariraka Bhashya. Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya were absolutely, they decimated this explanation of Shariraka Bhashya and refuted it point for point, and completely thwarted the descriptions. But although still, people still accept the Shankaracharya's explanations, the influence is so strong. But yet, Ramanujacharya was a force to be reckoned with, particularly to completely smash the Mayavada interpretation by the Shankarites. So one should not therefore attribute very much importance to the Shariraka Bhashya. Although it is done in the order of Narayana, it is meant for a different purpose. Just like we don't pay much attention to the portions of the Vedas which recommend the person to kill a goat and offer it to Kali. That is meant for the person in the mode of ignorance, and a devotee of Krishna is at least expected to be in the mode of goodness, which then means that we don't have to follow the instructions meant for the person in the mode of ignorance, because we're already on the higher ground now. So we have to reach the summit. So those instructions are to elevate. Instead of eating every day, eat once a month and offer it to Kali as a means of sacrifice. That's it. Not wanton eating every day. So to restrict, that's all. To restrict the killing of the animals. But it is not meant for a person who has already transcended that, who is on the Sattva, for example. He doesn't have to pay attention to that. So it is not of much importance. Similarly, this Shariraka Bhashya was for a different purpose, to get the atheists, who Buddhists are atheists. They don't accept the Vedas and they don't accept God. For them, Buddha is an enlightened soul, is not God. So those atheists, to bring them to theism, he presented a philosophy similar to theirs so that they could easily accept it, and then trying to bring the authority of the Vedas back into the society, on the basis of which Ramanujacharya would later come and thwart this misconception and establish the real meaning of the Vedas, which is personalism, through his Vishishtadvaita philosophy. And later on, finally, Shankaracharya comes and, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and presents the highest, Radhar Mahima, Vaishnavism, the gopis' love for Krishna, which is the highest. So in this way, the gradual evolution of religious understanding and the culture has developed over centuries. Okay, so one should not therefore attribute very much importance to the Shariraka Bhashya, not out of disrespect for Shankaracharya. We should acknowledge his mission, his place in history, his place in refining or reviving Vedic civilization. But then it was a timely necessity, it's not an eternal principle. So we should understand that context and give him respect in the context, but we should never agree with the Shariraka Bhashya itself. He did it on the order of Lord Narayana, and everything was perfect when what he did. He executed his service so perfectly that it is perfectly deluded anyone who reads it. And people are still mesmerized with it. So that's a glorious service he did. Even if the service was to destroy the Vedic understanding by presenting this distorted scriptural understanding, he did it gloriously. So we should appreciate that. While at the same time, we should absolutely shun this philosophy, which is dangerous. And that's the point. So we can respect and at the same time completely disagree with what he said, and he himself would disagree with that. Because Bhajagovindam Govindam Bhajam Murdhamate Samprapte Sannihite Kalin Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukkrin Karane. So these kind of intellectual gymnastics will not help you at the time of death. Just go and worship Govinda. That is the real thing that will help you at the time of death. So he himself despises this philosophy, but he had to do it as a service. Just like Yamaraj, he doesn't like to be in association of all sinful people. He wants to be with devotees, which is why he got a break and became Vidura for a while. But otherwise, he is always with sinful people, but that's his service. So it may not be the most pleasurable thing, oh, I can always be in association with you. No, you're in hell serving. But service is service. Even if has to be done in hellish conditions, it has to be done. So similarly, Shankaracharya did his service, although it is a hellish service to an extent. So misleading people is not a good thing, but that was a service. So he did it properly. So he can mislead people. In order to understand Vedanta philosophy, one must study Srimad Bhagavatam, which begins with the words Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yatonvayad Itaratas Chartesh Vabhignya Swarat. I offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudev, who is the supreme all-pervading personality of Godhead. I meditate upon him, the transcendent reality, who is the primeval cause of all causes, from whom all manifested universes arise, in whom they dwell and by whom they are destroyed. I meditate upon that eternally effulgent Lord who is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations and yet is fully independent. This is just the first line of the verse, first verse of the Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the real commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Unfortunately, if one is attracted to Sri Shankaracharya's commentary, Shariraka Bhashya, instead of Bhagavatam, his spiritual life is doomed. So if we want to understand Vedanta Sutra, we should understand with the commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a natural commentary. What is a natural commentary? Commentary written by the same author. So Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutra, and he also wrote the Bhagavatam, which is the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. But Shariraka Bhashya offers a very, very different commentary, which is very misleading. So one may argue that since Shankaracharya is an incarnation of Lord Shiva, how is it that he cheated people in this way? The answer is that he did so on the order of his master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, in the words of Lord Shiva himself. Mayavadam asachhastram prachannam bauddhamuchyate mayaiva kalpitam devi kalau brahmana rupina brahmanaschaparam rupam nirgunam vakshate maya sarvasvam jagatopyasya mohanartham kalau yuge vedante tu mahashastre mayavadam avaidikam mayaiva vakshate devi jagatam nashakaranat. The Mayavad philosophy Lord Shiva informed his wife Parvati is impious, Asat Shastra or Asat Shastra. It is covered Buddhism. It is Buddhism in a different garb. My dear Parvati, in Kali Yuga, I assume the form of a Brahmana and teach this imagined Mayavad philosophy. In order to cheat the atheists, I describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be without form and without qualities. Similarly, in explaining Vedanta, I describe the same Mayavad philosophy in order to mislead the entire population toward atheism by denying the personal form of the Lord. Earlier in the Padma Purana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead told Lord Shiva Dvaparado yuge bhutva kalaya manushadishu swagamaihi kalpitaistvam cha janan madvimukhan kuru. Mislead the people away from me. Madvimukhan kuru means take the people away from me. Why does he do that? Why does Narayana even want that? How is he merciful if he does that? Well, he is. When it is misused, when his words are misused, there has to be a reset in society. So that reset means let them forget the whole Vedas for a while and let it be reintroduced later with fresh, without all these, what is that, malinterpretations, misinterpretations, and wrong understandings. Let that be forgotten completely for a while. And let them practice some non-violence in the name of Buddhism, atheism, whatever. And when it has sufficiently, over centuries, it has been erased from human memory, then let me bring the Vedas back and slowly introduce this Vaishnavism again. So this happened over centuries, over thousands of years. Buddha came 2600 years ago, at least. And Shankaracharya came around, what, 700 or 800 AD or something like that? I might be wrong. That's 1000, 1500 years apart. So 1000 years later, Mayavada came. So you see how long it was that the Buddhist regime went on. And so that it is completely erased, even by, generations and generations, people completely forgot that way of life, Vedic way of life. So he had to erase the Vedic memory completely so that he can reintroduce it properly without the animal killing and all this nonsense. So Shankaracharya came to reintroduce Vedas and drove out the Buddhism from beyond the borders of known Bharat, today's Bharat Varsha. And in that way, protected the Punya Bhumi, Bharat Bhumi, by bringing back the Vedas, although the contamination of the explanations are still there. And therefore, then there was need for other acharyas to come and rectify the entire thing to bring it back to the pristine condition, which was the contribution of Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, and eventually now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his descendants. So, in Kali Yuga, this was the order that he received by Narayana, from Narayana. In Kali Yuga, mislead the people in general by propounding imaginary meanings for the Vedas to bewilder them. And Mad Vimukhan Guru, turn them away from me. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that Mukhya Vritti, the direct meaning, is Abhidha Vritti, or the meaning that one can understand immediately from the statements of dictionaries. Whereas Gauna Vritti, the indirect meaning, is a meaning that one imagines without consulting the dictionary. For example, one politician has said that Kurukshetra refers to the body, but in the dictionary there is no such definition. Therefore, this imaginary meaning is Gauna Vritti, whereas the direct meaning found in the dictionary is Mukhya Vritti or Abhidha Vritti. This is the distinction between the two. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that one understand the Vedic literature in terms of Abhidha Vritti and the Gauna Vritti he rejects. Sometimes, however, as a matter of necessity, the Vedic literature is described in terms of the Lakshana Vritti or Gauna Vritti, but one should not accept such explanations as permanent truths. The purpose of the discussions in the Upanishads and the Vedānta Sutra is to philosophically establish the personal feature of the absolute truth. The impersonalists, however, in order to establish their philosophy, accept these discussions in terms of Lakshana Vritti or indirect meanings. Thus, instead of being Tattvavada or in search of the absolute truth, they become Mayavada or illusioned by the material energy, Maya Paharta Jnana. When Sri Vishnu Swami, one of the four acharyas of the Vaishnava cult, presented his thesis on the subject matter of Shuddhadvaitavada, immediately the Mayavadis took advantage of this philosophy and tried to establish their Advaitavad or Kevaladvaitavad. Interesting. That's interesting. One of the four acharyas of the Vaishnava cult presented his thesis on the subject matter of Shuddhadvaitavad. Shuddha Advaitavad, purified oneness, not just oneness, not just Kevala Advaita. Immediately, the Mayavadis took advantage of this philosophy and tried to establish their Advaitavad or Kevala Advaitavad. To defeat this Kevala Advaitavad, Sri Ramanujacharya presented his philosophy as Vishishta Advaitavad, qualified oneness. And Sri Madhvacharya presented his philosophy of Tattvavada, both of which are stumbling blocks to the Mayavadis because they defeat their philosophy in scrupulous detail. Students of Vedic philosophy know very well how strongly Sri Ramanujacharya's Vishishtadvaitavada and Sri Madhvacharya's Tattvavada contest the impersonal Mayavad philosophy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, accepted the direct meaning of the Vedanta philosophy and thus defeated the Mayavad philosophy immediately. He opined in this connection that anyone who follows the principles of the Shariraka Bhashya is doomed. This is confirmed in the Padma Puran, where Lord Shiva tells Parvati, Shrunu Devi Pravakshyami Tamasani Yathakramam Yesham Shravana Matrena Patityam Jnaninamapi. You see, this is Mayavad Bhashya Sunila Hoy Sarvanash. Is not just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, it is the Vedas saying, Padma Puran. Lord Shiva himself is telling, Shrunu Devi Pravakshami Tamasani Yathakramam Yesham Shravanamatrena Patityam Jnaninamapi. Even if he is a big jnani, he will fall down. Shravanamatrena, just by hearing, just by listening. Apartham Shrutivakyanam Darshayal Lokagarhitam Karma Swarupa Tyajyatvam Atracha Pratipadyate Sarvakarma Paribhramshan Naishkarmyam Tatra Chocyate Paratma Jivayor Aikyam Mayatra Pratipadyate. My dear wife, hear my explanations of how I have spread ignorance through Mayavad philosophy. Simply by hearing it, even an advanced scholar will fall down. In this philosophy, which is certainly very inauspicious for people in general, apartham, I have misrepresented the real meaning of the Vedas and recommended that one give up all activities in order to achieve freedom from karma. In this Mayavada philosophy, I have described the Jivatma and Paramatma to be one and the same. You see, see that exact word. Paratma Jivayor Aikyam Mayatra Pratipadyate. The Paratma and Jiva, Aikyam means Ekam. They are one. How the Mayavada philosophy was condemned by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers is described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Leela, 2nd chapter, verse 94 through 99, where Swarup Damodar Goswami says that anyone who is eager to understand the Mayavada philosophy must be considered insane. See, Mayavada philosophy, how condemned. So, Antya Leela, 2nd chapter, 94 through 99. Wow. So, we probably should go there and come back. Where Swarup Damodar Goswami says that anyone who is eager to understand the Mayavad philosophy must be considered insane. This especially applies to a Vaishnava who reads the Shariraka Bhashya and considers himself to be one with God. The Mayavadi philosophers have presented their arguments in such attractive, flowery language that hearing Mayavadi philosophy may sometimes change the mind of even the Mahabhagavata or very advanced devotee. Look at how, see, Lord Shiva is Param Vaishnava, the greatest devotee in the universe. So when he was given a service of destroying Vedic understanding, he did it so perfectly that even a Mahabhagavat can fall down just by hearing it. Patityam Jnaninamapi. You see, Mayavadi philosophers have presented their arguments in such attractive, flowery language. Shankaracharya being the pioneer of it, and he did it in such attractive and flowery language that hearing Mayavad philosophy can sometimes change the mind of even a Mahabhagavat or very, very advanced devotee. An actual Vaishnava cannot tolerate any philosophy that claims God and the living being to be one and the same because it's very, very offensive. Absolutely offensive. Okay, so I think I will stop it there. Almost at 10 o'clock. I'll go through any questions and comments, and then we'll wrap up the session. And continue it next week, probably. Probably next week won't be possible because I might have something. We'll see how it goes. If not, maybe a Wednesday class. Maybe. So 1028 is referred in the comments. 1028. 20.20.8. निशामुखेषु खद्योतास्तमसा भान्तिनग्रहाः यथा पापेन पाषण्डा न हि वेदाः कलौ युगे. In the evening twilight, during the rainy season, the darkness allowed the glowworms but not the stars to shine forth. Just as in the age of Kali, the predominance of sinful activities allows atheistic doctrines to overshadow the true knowledge of the Vedas. Again, this whole chapter is a complete, perfect example of metaphorically explaining a very simple weather condition, a climate. The spring season, I think, is explained with so much metaphorical connotation of what it means. So that's another example where such devices are used in Vedic literature. Please tell where to learn Sandhya Vandanam. You don't have to do it. What you instead have to do is this. There is this nice verse by Yamanacharya. Is it Yamanacharya? Oh, sorry, Madhavendra Puri. Wow, got it wrong. Yeah, of course it's Madhavendra Puri. Why did I say Yamanacharya? Okay, so Madhavendra Puri is saying, Sandhya Vandana Bhadramastu Bhavato Bhoh Snana Tubhyam Namo Bho Devah Pitarascha Tarpana Vidho Naham Kshamah Kshamyatam Yatra Kvapi Nishadya Yadavakulo Tamasya Kamsadvisha Smaram Smaramagham Harami Tadalam Manye Ki Manye Name. Oh, my prayers 3 times a day. Oh, Sandhya Vandana. All glory to you. Namaskar to you. Oh, bathing. Oh, Snana. I offer my obeisances to you. Oh, demigods. Oh, forefathers. Please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Means he's saying, Sandhya Vandana I'm unable to do anymore. Not because he's incapable. No. He has transcended the need for that. Because it's a ritualistic karmakandiya stuff. But that Sandhya, in every Sandhya, we must Dhyayan Stuvam Stasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam. So in the Sandhya, we have to do Vandana. Of course, we as initiated devotees, we do our Gayatri Mantra, which is a Sandhya Vandanam. If you know the meaning of the Gayatri Mantras that we are chanting, it is actually Vandanam to Guru, Gaura, and Krishna. So, and if we really understand the meaning, it is very deep. So, we should contemplate on that Vandanam. So, offering of prayers 3 times a day, but we do it Vaishnava way. Okay, we don't do all the liturgy that is surrounding it, regular Smarta Sandhya Vandanam, but we nevertheless offer worship with other activities. First of all, we do Gayatri and also engage in Krishna's service, Guru's service, 24 hours a day, not just during Sandhya. So, forefathers, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. It's like you having found a river, then you don't need separate wells for, kind of drinking water, washing clothes, household thing, cooking or whatever. You don't need multiple wells for multiple reasons if you have one river which satisfies all the needs. So Sandhyavandanam is, one karma kandiya ritual that, Smartas do. But we don't have to do that. But we have to come to the point of Krishna consciousness. We should accept it's not that we give up on Sandhyavandanam and give up on all Vandana at all. No. During Sandhya, we have to have remembrance of Krishna. That's what he's saying. Smaram agham harami tadalam manye kimanyaname. When I'm thinking of Krishna constantly, not just during Sandhya, but constantly 24 hours a day, which is where we have to come to. I don't need anything else. So in other words, all the time we have to think of Krishna and engage in his service. So that's what, when we take initiation in this thing, we are not trying to escape these rituals and, kind of having a easy life. No. We are replacing it with such intense Krishna seva that it becomes redundant and it becomes pale in comparison and not so effective, in fact. All these Sandhyavandana, everything is demigod worship, Pitra worship, all this is insignificant in comparison to Krishna seva, which includes everything. What is that? Yatha taror mula nishechanena tripyanti tatskandha bhujopashakhaha pranopahara chayatendriyanam tathaiva sarvar hanamachyutejya. So just like you water the root of the tree and the whole tree gets nourished, however big the tree may be. So similarly, the root is Krishna. So when you serve Krishna, everything and everyone is served. So you don't have to separately serve the branch, the leaf, the flower, the fruit, no. So Sandhyavandana, Pitra worship, Devata worship, all these are different parts of the Supreme Lord. So by serving the Supreme Lord, nothing else needs to be done. One shot and everything is done automatically. That's the thing. So, the Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophytes. Comprehending all kinds of prayers 3 times a day, taking a bath early in the morning, offering respects to the forefathers, etc. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged into his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all of these regulative principles because he's already attained perfection. Now, having said that, we cannot completely give up on everything because we are still conditioned. Madhavendra Puri is in a liberated condition and therefore he can completely give up on all these rules. He transcended those rules. But we have not transcended the rules, but some things we have transcended. We have to transcend. Some of the things like bathing we still do. We are not like avadhuta, we don't like are completely indifferent. But some of the things, especially Vaishnava Vidhi, in our Vaidhi Bhakti, we have to accept some of the things, we have to relinquish some of the karma kandi stuff, even though we may not be perfectly situated in our Vaishnavism. But even a neophyte Vaishnava is superior to a karma kandi ritual follower. So, there are allegations that the Chaitanya Upanishad was fabricated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Wow. He has written his own Amnaya Sutra. He has written his own works. He doesn't have to like fake. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is not a fake. He's not a liar. So, just like Kalisantara Upanishad is not known, is not in the list of 108 Upanishads. So, it means there are other Upanishads other than the 108 which are also there. So, and also, honestly, the Yajurveda of the heavenly planets, 1 billion verses. What is revealed was only a small portion of it. There's a lot of it. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found the Brahma Samhita in the Adikeshava temple underground. And only the fifth chapter out of 100 chapters is found, and that is what the Brahma Samhita we know, the fifth chapter alone. So, where did that rest 99 chapters go? Well, they are still in existence. In Brahmaloka and other planets are still in existence. Of course, Brahma spoke it. But what is revealed was the fifth chapter. Many things are not revealed. That does not mean they're not there. So we have a very narrow view of the Vedic literature and how they exist. Therefore, we think, oh, these verses are made up, or these things happen. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also explains the reason for this. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also explains the reason for this. Like Kurma Puran, that verse of Maya, Sita, and everything, there he mentions in Madhya 9.200 verse in the purport, he explains that sometimes part of the scriptures get lost and maybe will be revived in another time, in another yuga. So that happens. Why is God's creation biased? Like, why is beauty cherished while the opposite is repelled? You know why? Any living being has to have bias. We can't be without bias. For example, I mean, Krishna took sides. Krishna took sides on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Ram took sides. Of course, that was his battle. But Krishna takes sides of his devotees. Like Nrisimhadeva. There was Prahlad, there was Hiranyakashipu. He took Prahlad's side. Bhaktavatsala. So we can't really get out of this thing and be absolutely neutral. We cannot do that. God himself doesn't do that. He says Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam. So there is always this duality, but materially the duality is, well, whether it's beauty or whether it's ugly, both are made of ugly things. Like a beautiful person's body and an ugly person's body, both are made of the same ingredients. Both are disgusting. But so the duality is illusory. Ultimately, everything is in its reality. Everything is gross. It's miserable here. But it gives us a glimpse of what the real reality looks like. Because in the reality, everything is actually beautiful. But here, the contorted version of it can look not so beautiful sometimes. And so, therefore, just like Anandamaya Bhyasa, we all gravitate towards happiness. We all like happiness. We all want to be happy. That's because that is the original nature of the soul. So the soul originally is beautiful. And materially, everything is not. But we make distinctions of this is beautiful and this is not. But this is like wet and dry stool. Both are stool after all. So similarly, beautiful or not is that duality here doesn't make really much sense because both are actually not so beautiful. But there is real beauty. And because there is real beauty, we gravitate towards illusory beauty in this world because it's a reflection of real beauty. Although it is actually not beauty, but it's a reflection of real beauty. Just like if you have a mannequin of a woman, beautiful woman. Now, it looks beautiful, but it's not beauty, it's just plastic. There's nothing there. So, similarly, a beautiful body in this world is only appreciated because it has a relation with the eternal beauty. Although it's just a reflection, although it is miserable, although it is actually not beauty, but it resembles beauty. So similarly, in this world, although everything is dukhalaya, all are miserable situations. But when there is a so-called material happiness, we prefer it that over absolute misery, naked misery, because that is a faint reflection of the actual happiness in the spiritual world. So because it gravitates to our original nature, and that's why we prefer beauty. That's why we prefer knowledge. That's why we prefer um, opulence. We prefer strength as to being not strong, as to weakness. We prefer strength over weakness. So all of these are the natural qualities of the soul. But being um, inhibited by the material body, it is forced to accept a subpar condition. But if there is something which gravitates towards the, or at least resembles the original condition, then that will, original constitutional position, then that will certainly attract us. It's a good question, by the way. Um, During live also that text was visible. Oh, that's good then. Yes. 6.429. Yeah. Yadyaniruktam Yadyaniruktam vachasa nirupitam dhiyakshabhirva manasotayasya ma bhutsvarupam gunarupam hi tattat savai gunapaya visarga lakshana. Anything expressed by the material vibrations, which is adhokshaja. Anything expressed by material vibrations, which is vibration means alphabets, sound vibration, not just the kind of vibration, sound vibration. So anything expressed by material vibrations, anything ascertained by material intelligence, and anything experienced by the material senses or concocted within the material mind is but an effect of the modes of material nature, and therefore has nothing to do with the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is nirguna. The Supreme Lord is beyond the creation of this material world, and for he is the source of the material qualities in creation. As the cause of all causes, he exists before the creation and after the creation. I wish to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. And this is exactly what the meaning of Adhokshaja is. It's beyond all Vedas. So Parishad Maharaj asks a question: how can he be expressed through the Vedas? The Vedas are revealed words, they're not creations of, although incarnating as if with material sounds. Material means when the arambha happens here by the conditioned souls. But when the arambha happens from Krishna, even if it takes on the seeming form of a material vibration or a form or something, it is spiritual because the source is spiritual. So he may incarnate in materialistic so-called material alphabets, but when it is revealed by him, that is spiritual. When it is concocted by us, then that's material. So any concoctions that we describe with words will never be equal to the truth, but when it is revealed by the Lord, then it is the same as the truth. Vedo Narayana Sakshat. All right. Yes, this was quoted by Jiva Goswami in the Tattva Sandarbham. Padma Puran says one should interpret the Veda through means of Itihasas and Puranas. The Vedas fear a person of little learning, fearing he will misunderstand me. So this is true. Mukhya vritti is as it is. Yeah. Krishna. Mental speculators saying that Krishna's eating as consuming energy is Gauna Vritti, or considering covering a stool conch shell is untouchable, all are Gauna Vritti. It's not Gauna Vritti, that's just like having a different opinion. I don't know. How is Gauna Vritti? Will Krishna give opportunity to Yamaraj to serve Krishna as his personal associate? As you told, his service like he always dealing with sinful souls, he would desire to be with devotees. Well, Vidura, that's what happened. He got a chance. But even otherwise, whatever service is given to a pure devotee, he does it with full happiness. If that's what pleases Krishna, he will do it. So, devotee's position is not that he's not enjoying his service, but just that sometimes he may think, okay, I want some devotee association. I want to learn also. I want to be able to listen and learn. I want that. So that was the chance given to him in the incarnation as Vidura. Shaktavesh avatars are Jivatattvas? Interesting question. Because even Ananta is considered a Shaktavesh avatar. So I don't quite understand that. But usually it's the Jivatattvas empowered by Krishna. But there is Ananta who is the Vishnu Tattva. And he's considered a Shaktavesh avatar. So I don't understand why he is a Shaktavesh avatar when he already has the Shakti. If he is a Shaktiman, he does not need to be Avesha Shakti. Does not need to be empowered. He's already powerful. Empowered means the person is not individually powerful, but he is especially, power has been invested in him by Krishna, and that is called Avesha. So I don't know why Avesha, Shakti Avesha is used for Ananta. Impersonalism spread demoniac mentality. Wouldn't that mean that religions that see God as impersonal, then would there be demoniac tendencies in their practices? Yeah, that's a good observation, because it is said that well, demoniac practices can happen even in Vaishnavism, which happened before Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Our religion was so degraded. Now it is so respected because of the acharyas. They revived, especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Prabhupada. They revived, and now it is so much respected. Although, yeah, there is still disrespect, but far from what was the state of affairs just prior to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's intervening. So yeah. Everything to do with the Vedas without touching them. Krishna is some substance of the Vedas. It is in the list as number 103, the Kali Santarana Upanishad. There it is mentioned Kali Upanishad, but maybe that it is, I don't know. Shaktavesha 20.368. Shaktavesha Duirup Mukhya Gauna Dekhe. Interesting. Mukhya Gauna again. Yes, I have seen this. Sakshat Shakti, when there is direct power, avatar, they are called incarnations. Abhase, when there is an indication, Vibhuti Likhi. Yeah, so this I have seen. Shaktavesha and Vibhuti. Vibhuti possessing special. Yeah. Empowered incarnations are of two types, primary and secondary. Primary ones are directly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are called incarnations. The secondary ones are indirectly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are called Vibhuti. And Vibhuti Yoga chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that I am the power in, I am the strength of the strong, I am the taste of water. All of this is empowerment of Krishna, that the water has a taste that reminds us of Krishna. But that is vibhuti, it's indirect empowerment. The strength of the lion, for example, that is empowerment by Krishna, because that ferocity and that strength is, and that boldness is something special. And that is definitely an empowerment by Krishna, but it's an indirect empowerment. It's not a direct empowerment in the mission of the Lord, but it is definitely an empowerment by the Lord. So that is vibhuti. So sakshad means direct for a specific purpose, and vibhuti is these indirect expansions or indirect empowerments. And interestingly enough, Ananta is considered a vibhuti expansion, vibhuti avesha incarnation. That's even more strange. So, but generally, it is the jiva who is empowered to act on behalf of the Lord. Like Prabhupada, he is Shakti Avishavatar because he was given Krishna Shakti Vina Nahetar Pravartan. One cannot preach without being empowered by the Lord. So that is a Shakti Avesha. So Krishna confers different opulences of his upon different devotees and thus glorifies them by conferring upon them some of his opulences. Like Sakshad Vairagya Murtaya, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Vairagya is one of the opulences of Krishna, one of the 6 opulences. But when he invests it upon, or when he confers it upon someone, like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, then he displayed that. So like that. So anyway, that's that. Oh yeah, this is completely unrelated to the class, but just one small thing before we go. Because in the last Bhagavatam class, I was mentioning about in the Satya Yuga there were Hamsa category, not no Varnashram. And I said it was in the 11th canto. This is that verse, 11:17:10. Ādau kritayuge varno nirnam hamsa iti smritaha kritakrityaha praja jatya tasmat kritayugam viduh. Kritakrityaha means perfect in the execution of duties by complete surrender to the Supreme Lord. In the beginning, in Satya Yuga, there is only one social class called Hamsa, to which all human beings belong. In that age, all people are unalloyed devotees of the Lord from birth, and thus learned scholars call this first age Krita Yuga, or the age in which all religious duties are perfectly fulfilled. So this is that. Then Vedaha Pranava Evagre Dharmoham Vrisharupadhrik Upasate Taponishtha Hamsam Mam Muktakil Bishaha. In Satya Yuga, the undivided Veda is expressed by the syllable Om, and I am the only object of mental activities. I become manifest as the 4-legged bull of religion, and thus the people of Satya Yuga, fixed in austerity and free from all sins, worship me as Lord Hamsa. Then, Treta Mukhe Mahabhaga Pranan Me Hridaya Trayi Vidya Pradurabhutasya Aham Asam Trivrinmakha. Greatly fortunate one. At the beginning of Treta Yuga, Vedic knowledge appeared from my heart, which is the abode of the air of life in 3 divisions, Rik, Sama, and Yajur. And from that knowledge, I appeared as a 3-fold sacrifice. And Vipra Kshatriya Vit Shudra Mukha Bahuru Padajaha Vairajat Purushajata Ya Atmachara Lakshanaha Achara Lakshanaha. Again, by guna and karma, by activities and by qualities. In Treta Yuga, the 4 social orders were manifested from the universal form of the personality of Godhead. The Brahmanas appeared from the Lord's face, Kshatriyas' arms, Vaishyas from the Lord's thighs, and Shudras from the legs of that mighty form. Each social division was recognized by its particular duties and behavior, not by Janma again. Ya Atma Achara Lakshanam. So anyway, that was from the Bhagavatam class, but I missed that verse, could not recollect. But anyway, thank you all very much. श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत की जय, श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय, सार्वभौम भट्टाचार्य की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल, हरे कृष्णा।